Hello everyone, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this extremely important and timely event. I am honored to be a part of ReWired 2021, a crucial initiative to help improve and expand access to education, to improve the education model, innovate, and make sure that we can deliver quality, practical education for all. I am very grateful to Anina Matson for the invitation to participate, and also I wanted to express my congratulations to Dr. Tariq Al-Ghurg, Chief Executive Officer of Dubai Cares, all the team at Dubai Cares and ReWired, obviously the government of the UAE hosting this wonderful expo that I believe is extremely important to bring together all the countries, companies, institutions, and civil society to create a better future for all in these difficult moments. I also see how vital it is to be discussing education right now because of the reality that we're facing. Not only we have these converging health, economic and social crises that are happening at the same time, but also we are going to face a lot of disruption in the coming years because of the convergence of new technologies. And all this transformation is going to lead to massive changes in the job market, and it's going to require 50% of our population to be in need of reskilling or upskilling. We see how 80% of companies are having problems to find the right talent. We are seeing the great resignation with people leaving companies, but at the same time there's this huge mismatch of the skills that are trained on in universities and business schools many times and what companies are demanding. The level of sophistication of our work and the need of digital skills, all of those different elements are converging and are making things very difficult for many people that are now starting, especially people in underdeveloped areas, people that come from difficult socioeconomic backgrounds, but basically for anyone, even in developed countries, to create a path for prosperity for themselves and catch up with all the needs of education and all the needs of actually becoming ready to face the challenges ahead. And that's why I think it is so important to organize this event and why I see the crucial value it has, especially because education can be the best solution we have to actually create prosperity in the future, to create well-being, and to maximize the positive impact we create and the way we actually fight to try to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It is crucial also to bring the most important actors and leaders in the education space, and having not only the participation of really relevant international organizations like the World Economic Forum, but also UNESCO, UNICEF, Global Partnership for Education. All these really relevant organizations are key, and talking about education innovation and how to improve it, I think is exactly the right priority right now. I am Carlos Sentís. I am the founder and CEO of the World Innovation Alliance, and I am proud to serve at the board of international development of the World Humanitarian Forum and also at the board of the Organization of Young Entrepreneurs of the European Union. I am also very lucky to lecture in many different universities and mentor people and speak to people of different ages all over the world. And one of the things that I can see clearly is that we all need some support, that we are all in need of some sort of mentoring and coaching, and we all need to find the best possible practical skills that are going to allow us to navigate these uncertain times. And that's why we've been working very hard in the World Innovation Alliance to try to create programs that can be delivered to as many people as possible to improve their capacity of facing mental and physical health issues, to maximize the positive impact they can create as individuals and organizations, and also to find economic prosperity. So what are those things that can help people find a job or create a job, become entrepreneurs, or create solutions for a better world? And one of the things that we are the most excited about is the fact that we see wonderful best practices and extremely useful examples of what some organizations are doing all over the world that can be replicated. And one of our main goals is to precisely curate some of those solutions and advocate for the implementation of those solutions. And when it's not a best practice that we can see that someone is using either in a school, university, at a government level, or even in companies, we are designing our own ideas and models that can be scalable solutions that can be implemented right away and that can help people to create the type of education that is going to be useful for themselves as individuals, or to regulate and to implement programs that can be extremely valuable, especially to deliver this education to as many people as possible and provide free access to quality education for all. And what we are going to be focusing our efforts on is precisely on those models, programs, concepts, reforms, and best practices that can be used by anyone, and that can, through this global advocacy campaign that we're working on, open advocacy, sharing these models with the hope that we're going to help organizations to implement them so we can influence positively as many people as we can. And so we're going to be talking about that today. I'm going to share some of the models that we have, and it's going to be between 10 and 15 different innovations to improve education, to provide access to education, and very concrete calls to action that anyone can use, because we see that many times the solutions are there, it's just that we're not using them or we're not putting them in practice. Some of the examples that we believe are extremely useful are what we're seeing with EdTech and what we're seeing with, for example, the Khan Academy, with Udemy, Coursera, edX. There's so many wonderful platforms that are innovating a lot and they're doing so much for humanity. Because when we think about lack of access to education, we forget that many times we have those contents that are needed, the programs that are needed are already available. And the example of Khan Academy, that is for free, and it has entire school programs and even after school, that is available for everyone. And we can use it more, especially for people that cannot go to physical schools that do have access to the internet. But there are cases where there's no access to internet, and I think that for those particular cases we need to be very strategic and think of how can we optimize resource allocation, how can we use all the data that we have, data from the World Bank or data from the United Nations, and many foundations that are doing great work, universities are doing remarkable research on what are the optimal paths for us to deliver education. Many times we're working as separate silos and we're not focusing our efforts in the places that are needed the most. Sometimes we have people that are, with all the best intention, creating schools in places that are not so needed, where there are other places where those are needed. And many of the cases, what we see as well is that through online delivery or online to offline, which is downloading really practical content so people can use it directly using devices that they do have, or delivering practical textbooks of those contents that can be shared with local communities that are in many times underdeveloped areas through last mile delivery of partners that can be from the national post office to multinational companies that have really good distribution channels. So we see that the content that is there that can be utilized, that can be either shared online, downloaded and shared device through device, and actually deliver the actual training, lessons, courses through mentorship. And then you can actually go and deliver practical textbooks versions of those very practical skills. I think it is really clear that if we use the right data and the right channels and the right partnerships, we can deliver education to many, many more people. So that is one of the main focuses of our work, which is how can we optimize that resource allocation and that delivery. Because again, when we think about education, many times we're thinking about the normal programs and the normal curriculums that require 15 years and then the whole university. So it becomes an incredibly long-term investment, which is fundamental if you can do it. But there's people, and there's especially many children in Africa and in other regions that are not empowered and enabled by their own families or their own communities to actually acquire that kind of education. Either they don't have access to it, or they're not encouraged because they are forced to work very early, or they just need to work very early. And for those cases, we see that sometimes you can do an intervention that can provide a lot of value, instead of expecting them to do an entire curriculum of the whole school. Maybe we can create programs that are specific, that are clearly going to be useful for them to find economic prosperity, that help them learn things about entrepreneurship and other things that can be useful for them, and make it as short and concise as possible. So if they can go to school for their whole youth, that's fantastic. If we cannot, at least we have these programs that they can use, and they can provide massive value. And that's one of the things that we're doing, and we're now developing programs that are going to be shared with refugees, with girls, and young people in different countries in Africa and in other regions. And the whole idea all the time is how to use the resources that we already have, and how can we deliver them in the most effective way possible. One of the other models that we consider to be very important, regardless of where we are at, is the idea of teaching people on well-being, impact, and prosperity. And what this means is that every person in the world needs to take care of their physical and mental health and the health of people around them. But we're normally not educated on how to do that. And so one of the things that we see that our normal education model lacks is precisely focus on that area. And so we're going to try to include that with pilot programs, and we see how it would be very beneficial for students of all ages to get to know more about how to manage not only things like anxiety or stress or mental health issues, but also even physical health, how to sleep better, how to have a better nutrition, all those things that can be very useful and important. Things like the type of risks that you may have with certain drugs, the obvious benefits of vaccinations that are now being obviously under attack everywhere. So all those things we consider to be important, and we think that they should be a part of the education system. And so we're doing these programs to also show how useful they can be. The second part is that we all want to make an impact, and we all want to add some sense of purpose. And that is something that is being very clear when you see the new generations that are now expecting companies and demanding companies to be more focused on impact, but also they want their own jobs to be connected to social impact somehow. We're all working under the UN SDGs, and that is becoming a very important rule that at some point is going to replace the entire economy. That's how we see it. It's going to turn into an impact economy. When you see the evolution of impact investing, that is actually getting to $150 trillion from being almost non-existent, that shows the trend and obviously the development that is going to come after most of our investments go to impactful projects, impactful social entrepreneurial businesses. I think it is clear that it's a really positive trend, and because of that we need to train people on what does it mean to make an impact. And many times we're not actually very aware of what that means. So one of the things that we propose in those programs is and in the education model in general is that everybody should be trained on how to become a human rights advocate, how to make a bigger impact as an individual, how can companies align interest and positive impact, how can you mentor other people, how can you take care of the environment, how can you of course recycle, take care of animals, how can you provide more value to your community, how can you create even jobs. All those things that are really embedded in the UN SDGs, but many times many people don't see the direct connection between the goals and the actual contributions they can do, and we see that as a vital part of our programs, and vital as something that every student of any age should have the access to, at least to see what people are doing, what is possible to do, what needs to be fixed, what solutions exist, what are the opportunities we have to make things better. And thirdly, very, very importantly, is what we call skills for growth. every skill that can help individuals to find a job, create opportunities. It is fundamental that we see what are the different career paths that are ahead of us. And many times it's not only a normal career that we have as a possibility. We also have the entrepreneurship model. We also have the possibility of becoming independent professionals. There's many economic models that we can use, and it is important for people to know them. We see students of all ages that don't know much about elements that are basic for their lives, like financial literacy in general, how to deal with credits, how to deal with banks, how to deal with risk, how can they make money and manage money, how can they actually find ways to create jobs. All those things are very important. And when we talk about skills for growth, we're talking basically about all those really practical skills that either allow you to create a job or to find good jobs that are demanded right now in the market. So examples that would be entrepreneurship, innovation, could be sales, public relations, public speaking, digital skills, coding, problem solving, empathy, and a number of other skills that are extremely important for any individual and that are demanded by every company, but most people are not trained on. And then, many times the biggest issue that we have entering the job market is that because you don't have those skills and you don't have the experience, then you cannot show that you can provide value to the company. And that is an awful virtuous cycle. So it is important to break it. And in order to break it, we are proposing that education is not so focused on theoretical knowledge that is available anyways, but rather that we also put a lot of emphasis in the actual skills that can be helpful for them in the short and mid-term. Now, having this sort of program is, we believe, something important that adds a clear, useful layer for the normal education curriculum. But there's another element that we see as crucial, especially with the new wave that we're seeing of new technologies. And precisely it's how can we utilize technology for our own lives, our careers, our companies. How can we use technology for good and for the SDGs? And what are the risks associated to technology, and how can we prevent or avoid or manage the risks and the problems that are connected to technology? So what that means is that because everybody has devices now and the number of devices per person is just growing, we have a larger surface of attack. And that means that cybersecurity is a hugely important issue that we're not focusing on, I believe, enough. Most people are not aware of what are the best practices of what they could be doing in order to prevent more attacks. And in fact, one of the problems is that we're all going to suffer attacks. It's not if you're going to suffer an attack, is more when, how many times, and how devastating that can be for your interest or the interest of the organizations you're working for. So it is very important that we have cybersecurity embedded in our education system, and that all these new technologies from AI, IoT, robotics, everything that has to do with technology platforms like the normal software as a service platforms that allow people to be more productive, project management, time management, calendar, email, video calls, video events. There's many technologies that are now not only evolving very fast and becoming more and more sophisticated and more difficult to catch up on, but also there are some that are revolutionizing everything. And even things like the metaverse bring all great opportunities to improve and enhance the education experience, to make it more engaging and more appealing, and to learn things in a more practical way, and to actually feel that you are doing those things or you're learning those things in a way that you actually connect with those ideas in a deeper way. So all of these technologies could be used to improve education, and all of those technologies are important in people's lives, and all of these technologies are also a threat somehow to either their mental health or it is a threat, and they are a threat for also problems that they may have in the future. So I think talking about technology much more, not only training on coding, which is really good, or providing digital skills, but understanding the new technologies and allowing students to see all these new technologies one by one, and what are the applications they have in different industries, the applications that they have and the implications those technologies are going to have, is something that everybody should be aware of, and that normally our education systems and universities are not teaching too much of that, and we see it as something fundamental in this moment. So it is, as we see, important to rethink a little bit the contents of what we're teaching on, but also there's the methodology that we're using, that we see both some great examples of countries that are doing wonderful job helping people to learn in more creative ways, in more fun ways, engaging more, less theoretical, and in a way that they actually achieve better results. But also we see many new methodologies that could be implemented that we believe should be global and universal and everywhere. One example of that is what we call practical, skill education, which is making sure that you're not just talking about things that should be learned or skills that are useful, but you actually make sure that kids and students of all ages actually acquire them and master these skills. For example, when we're talking about public speaking, every single company, every single work you're going to do in your life, any community engagement work you're going to do, whatever you do in whatever area, you're going to need to speak to people, and you're going to need to learn how to speak to people in an effective way. And many times what we have in schools is that there's just one program sometimes where some of the students get involved, there's some debate contest, there's things like that, but it is very rare to see that from a very young age up to the end of university, all of those grades, that they are all required to be really good at public speaking, that they are very good at speaking in all sorts of formats, in front of the camera, in front of big audiences, speaking standing and seated, preparing and not preparing. They should be really good at speaking in the different languages that they are learning, and they should be very confident. And not learning those skills in a practical way is really harmful. So that is public speaking. Another one that is very important that we normally don't talk about, even in business schools, is sales. But for any individual in an underdeveloped area or any person, sales is always going to be important. You're selling yourself when you're looking for a job. You're selling your project. You're selling your investment pitch. You are selling yourself as an individual, or you're selling your ideas all the time. It's just that many times we don't have the actual strategy and methodology and the right knowledge about it. And so people struggle to find jobs, and people struggle to sell products and services. And if you think about some of the work, some of the jobs that people can do in places that don't have even access to the internet, they can become entrepreneurs and they can create some businesses for themselves. But every business needs sales. And yet, sales is something that we normally consider to be very far away from education, very far away from what we want to do, because it seems like something bad in some way. But the whole world is moved because of sales all the time. We can call it however we want, but the whole point is that if we are not able to create a value proposition, improve our value proposition, introduce it to others, connect with others, if we're not good at public relations, human connections, and we don't understand the whole process in which you can go from not having something to actually being able to create and connect with others, so you can create those exchanges that can lead to economic development, we're going to be in a very, very difficult spot, especially because a lot of the work is going to turn more like the gig economy, is going to be more project-based, and is going to be less long-term. We see how hybrid work is revolutionizing everything. It's the first time in human history that we have the capacity of actually working in a different place that we live in. And that means that you can virtually work for anyone. And in fact, what people are going to do more and more, and we're seeing a huge race in freelancer platforms like Fiverr.com, freelancer.com. We see millions of people in developing countries that are selling services online, and they have several employers, they have several clients. And a lot of the jobs of the future, like it or not, are going to be more modular, more granular, and they're going to be more project-based. And a lot of people are going to be happier as well because they're not going to just work with one company that is alienating them somehow. But many times what's going to happen is that they're going to have several clients that they align with, that they resonate with, and that they want to provide value to, that are in different parts of the world. So everything that has to do with how to sell those skills, how to sell those services, how to connect and bring opportunities closer to you, how to do digital marketing, how to do personal branding, all those things are absolutely vital. And so we see how these things should be included, and we have very clear ways and action plans to make it happen. But obviously it requires some consensus around if these make sense or not. And we see how it does, and there's plenty of evidence that supports it, but there is needed a commitment, and we do have a sense of urgency. It is important that we act fast, because if we change education now, then we are going to need several years to see the effects. But if we don't change it now, and we see in the coming 10 years, we're going to have so much disruption and all these jobs that are going to change, it's going to be incredibly difficult for people to adapt. And there's going to be a lot of social pain. And we do fear that that social pain is going to lead to some protests that could turn into violence. And you never know how fast that can scale globally. So we are very concerned about that, and we see education as a key solution for that. One of the very important things that we propose as well is what we call action education, which is learning by doing. And this is something that is being done in many parts, but unfortunately it's not the norm. And what we see, for example, when we're doing in a university or in a school, when you're doing a project or a case study or a case analysis, normally you're talking about something that happened in the past. And normally you're talking about something that is very theoretical. The suggestion that we have is to focus on practical projects that are real. And not only real, but also connected to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So the idea is to basically enable all students to be a part of the solution for our global problems in practical ways, using the skills that they have learned. And the way that materializes is, imagine, a group of engineers that instead of doing a theoretical project at the end of their grades, what they do is they work on a specific solution for water distribution in Africa, or drug distribution, or problems of carbon capture, whatever the project of whatever the SDG, any student can provide value by either thinking, designing, building, connecting. And what we see as well is that they could be connecting with students of all over the world, and even people that are not only students. They could be collaborating with universities, with companies, with NGOs, and with international organizations, looking for how can they contribute, because they want to contribute, but normally they are just so embedded in the tasks they have to do in order to get their grades, that normally they are just doing those theoretical projects instead of working on real life impactful projects. We see action education as a really practical tool and a very powerful resource to enable everyone to be a part of the solution, to help people to understand why they are learning the things they are learning, what are the implications they have in real life, and what are the contributions they can do from the beginning of their career, even before leaving university, if they are in university, but that can be applied as well for school as well. So action education that allows them to work on real life projects and that are driven by data that we have available about what are the problems that need the most attention and what are the things that individuals can do to provide value to the work that is being done already. So making sure that it's not only about theoretical knowledge, but also practical skills, that skills are delivered in a way that they actually master or acquire them, and they can use them, and they can demonstrate that they are able to use them, and also that we put those skills to work in real action that is connected to impact with the UN SDGs as the umbrella compass. And I think that all of that can be very useful, and we're going to be developing some of these pilot projects to show that the potential of this is huge, because you have students all over the world of all ages that would love to be a part of the solution for the SDGs. They just don't know what to do, how to do it, and sometimes they lack incentives. And that's one of the other things that we consider would be interesting, is to add gamification in education to make it more appealing, more interesting, but also to give them rewards. The more they do, the more they learn, the more value they provide, the better they perform, not only in the academic side, but also as human beings, the more we reward them. And there's these potential of all sorts of rewards that can come from the private sector, from universities themselves, not only certifications and recognitions and other benefits, but also they can have gifts and other experiences, and the possibility of really receiving things that are important for them, also at a personal level. So the collaboration between different actors to give really interesting and appealing incentives for different age brackets can be a great incentive for them to do more, to learn more, to understand better why they're doing what they're doing, and to actually connect it to their own interest. And there's many ways to do that, but in general, in the moment where you really have this incentive structure, where you make sure that every student has the possibility of contributing to make the world better, then they can all receive more benefits the more they do for the others. And that really is more, I would say, is more connected to the real life that they're going to experience afterwards, because then they work in exchange of the salary and they always have to balance their own interests as well. And it is important to have the gamified experience to make it more appealing. That is not just you have to do this, but also that you are developing yourself as a character of a video game. You are improving in all aspects, and you're trying to become the best you can so you can defeat the monsters of life. And you have a mission, you are the hero, and you have to perform well in order to receive all the benefits that you want for yourself. And we see many ways to do that. There's systems that are already in place, and things that we're working on as well. And if you're interested in the concept, we call it Individual Development Operative System. And again, is the idea that every student becomes as a video game character with the skill set, and they can keep growing. So everything they do leads to their character developing, not only in the normal grades, but in general as a person, with the skills and with the resources and with the experiences that they have, but also the things they are doing to make things better. That is also contributing for their own personal benefit. Now, with action education and impact education, with the well-being, impact, prosperity, and technology program, with all of that, we can help a lot. Also with the delivery that we were mentioning before, talking about how can we either do online distribution, where you can use celebrities, influencers, events, media, partnerships with all types of organizations to make sure that the right content gets to as many people as possible in this new moment where everybody needs reskilling, and they need awareness of the fact that they need reskilling. And having these kind of communication campaigns is really going to help them. But also when you have this program and you make it available offline so people can use it in their devices, or you can distribute it to people through last mile delivery with practical textbooks. So all of that is, we think, important and useful, but there are many other innovations that can be implemented that can be really good and useful for the students, for schools, for teachers. And one of the most important things that we have found is the fact that every student and every person in the world needs support. Normally what we have is just these corporate coaches that are operating with very few companies, and then you have psychologists and psychiatrists, and in between there's a huge space of basically everybody else that as humans we have all sorts of fears, insecurities, anxieties, personal problems, and we see a huge increase in depression, mental health issues, suicides, the abuse of different drugs and opioids and things that are a clear indication of the fact that we need to do something about mental health, and we need to do something to support people, and that it is not only about academic growth and professional growth, but it's also about mental well-being. And what we are proposing is that all teachers should also be improve experts, in the sense that they are not just providing some knowledge, but they are using their experience, using their empathy, and putting the effort to help people to improve their lives, to provide comfort and support, and to help grow the students that they have. Because information is already available. The question is, how can people use that information? So both for the health part, but also for the development part, and how to apply the contents and the skills, and how to find economic prosperity, and how to create a strategy for yourself, and how to move forward in life. It is important to have someone there, and we see the creation of this new role as something that is going to happen sooner or later, but we believe it would be really useful already to include more mentorship. And we see that in different universities. I just went to Egypt, and I went to Galala University to give a lecture, and they are already mentoring all their students, and they're providing an entrepreneurship course in all the disciplines, no matter what you're studying. So that is an example of the kind of thing that I'm talking about. The idea that everybody should have an improved expert with them, and that the role of the teacher is not just to teach content that is already available, but rather to make sense of it, to answer questions, to support, to guide, to help them improve themselves, so they can improve their lives and they can improve communities. So that idea, not only in schools, but also as a service that can be provided online and in improved centers, that is another of the models. All of those things are something that we see that are relevant, and that everybody can use in different ways. To make it very practical, if you have a school, either you include some improved experts, mentors, or coaches to help people and to make sure that people are doing well, and to help them develop, or you train your teachers, so a part of what they do is also empowering and providing coaching and mentorship. We see that as something important, and there's many professionals all over the world that are willing to provide mentorship. We have seen many companies that are now doing mentorship programs to help the youth, just with their employees, with volunteer pro bono hours that they are spending. So there are practical ways to make this happen, but we see the concept as something really important. And what I was saying about the improved centers, this is something that we are also very proud of, and that we're going to deploy very soon, that basically leverages spaces that are being underutilized to turn them into centers for personal development, skill learning, and co-creation. So the whole idea is that in a school that normally finishes classes in the afternoon, for example, there's a long time after that is being underutilized. Many of the spaces of universities, but also community centers, there's many, even restaurants, hotels, there's many spaces that are in different communities, regardless of the country and the level of economic development. There are spaces that can be used to help people to learn, to acquire skills, to learn new knowledge, but also to collaborate and connect with others. So the idea that we propose is that every school or university that they want, and also this could be done by local and regional governments, is to open spaces where there are some mentors. You don't have to have a lot, but some mentors, and then anybody of any age could go and learn skills. Normally you have school that you just are part or not, and also universities that you are either part of or not, and then you have academies that they train you on a very specific skill. What we're proposing is that there's a range of really useful practical skills, and there are several experiences and programs that you can put in place there, so people of all ages can go to those physical spaces that were already there, and they can benefit directly, either paying or without paying. There are many ways to make this happen. But the reason why this is important is, first of all, there's a lot of people that they did not get the opportunity to either go to university or go to or finish school especially, for example, mothers in developing countries that they had kids very soon and they had to take care of the family, and now they want to go to school, but it's really something not very convenient to have to go and do the whole process of school again. But they need to reskill, or they need to upskill, or they want to create projects, but many times there's no place for that. So what we propose is that every education institution and every space that is available should be used as much as possible for people to gather, to learn, to improve themselves, and they can work together on projects, on impactful actions, or just create economic development opportunities. And in order to make that, you can consider these as a mix between a co-working center, a startup accelerator, an academy, and a place where you can receive mentorship. And you put all that together, and you just have to use the space and coordinate the mentorship program, and you can have something incredibly useful for local communities, and to involve the members of those communities that they want to contribute. They have the knowledge or the experience, and they want to be useful, and many times they don't know what they can do. So this model of the Improve Experts and Improve Centers is something that we're working on, and that if you're interested in, we can help you understand more. But in any case, I think it's pretty self-explanatory that obviously with all the information that is available online already, the question is not so much if you have the information or not, is more if you have some support and guidance on what is the useful content to learn, and how can you apply it, and you have the right environment to apply it. Another very important point that we consider that normally the education system is lacking is connections. And what we mean by this is that no matter how knowledgeable you are and how many skills you have, in order to find economic prosperity, you're going to need connections. You're going to need to have either an employer or a partner or a client or an investor. Every person, to achieve everything that they want, they always they're always going to need some connections. But we don't have the current system that allows you to really create a lot of connections for your growth. And so the way we propose to do this is the following. There's a concept that we're advocating for that is called crossing borders, or connections for growth. And it's the idea that every student in school and university has regular digital exchanges with people of other countries, other religions, other sectors if they are already in university, and that by default, every week they are meeting people that can become their friends, partners, supporters, employees. It doesn't really matter the role at this point. The most important thing is that we all need connections, and that whatever you're going to try to achieve in your life, you're going to need contacts. And it's not only about having a good resume because you have a good education and then you apply and you're going to get the job. Now is getting more and more clear that it is going to be more important to have the right skills, the right attitude, and the right connections, and the right value exchange than having a specific degree. Even if it is very important to have university degrees, and even if they provide a lot of value as well. People like Elon Musk are already saying that they don't see so much the degrees you may have or the universities you went to, but more if you can solve difficult problems, if you can be useful for the company, basically. So no matter if we're trying to achieve economic development for the students, or if we're trying to create a more civil society that is more integrated, and we want to fight discrimination, we want to fight inequality, we want to fight for human rights, no matter what we do, connections are going to be vital. There's 60% less chance of you hating another race or another community if you have just one friend in that community. So that means that if we can create enough connections between people of different races and different religions and different backgrounds, we can fight the current tendency that we have of the hate that exists between countries, the hate that exists between many times even neighboring tribes, the hate that exists between the different political ideas, and we see that played over and over again. Many times when I have been in touch with other cultures, and I have worked with different cultures, with Asia, I have worked specifically with China a lot, and we see how many people tend to not really understand how similar we are. But then I speak to some of my students in Africa, in India, or in Latin America, and what we care about, what we need, what we expect, most of those things are very, very similar. And there's so much more that we share than what we don't share. But if we don't know these people, if we don't ask them what their life is like, it is very difficult to go forward. So both for the opportunities of economic development and for the opportunities of building better societies and creating more equal and more respectful and more civil societies, we believe that these connections are really important. If we're talking about schools, only just to create those friendships and showing people what it is to live in other parts of the world and what their realities are. You cannot hate on everybody that is different than you if you know people of all those different nationalities or backgrounds, and you cannot be surprised to see that people eat other things when you have friends all over the world that are already eating all those things, and in fact you are trying those things. So what we're suggesting is this program where every student every week or every month at least has some interaction with people of other countries, of other backgrounds, or even of other classes. Many times is other ages. Whatever it is, that diversity, that connection is going to be incredibly valuable for them to grow as people. But also, if you take it to the professional side as well, having friends in different parts of the world is a guarantee that you're going to have more opportunities in the future. So especially for university students, if they can already have connections with professionals, with experts in different fields, with people in different markets, it's going to be very, very useful for them. The way we are thinking about this is as a sort of a global digital Erasmus. That if you're familiar with Erasmus, it has some interactions with other with people that are outside of the European Union, but not all. And many times what we're doing is we're not making the most out of the opportunity of remote working, remote learning, and the connections that you can create online. So what we're proposing is that students of schools and universities regularly do connections with other people of different backgrounds and situations that can be beneficial, and that we do it in a way that it is organized and coordinated, so the activities and the exchanges are the most beneficial possible, that they do together projects, that they understand each other, that they're guided and mentored, so they make the most out of those connections and they can keep them. Education is not about tests and grades. Education is about helping people to improve their lives, helping people to be the best they can be and to be valuable for their communities. And we need to focus on what are the most effective solutions, what are the best ways we have to invest the least amount of effort and time and change the least amount of things possible, but in a way that can actually transform positively the way we deliver education for all. We see a huge potential, and also we see with great optimism that there's these wonderful initiatives like ReWired 2021 and great partnerships and great organizations that are doing fantastic job. I see how the Lego Foundation and UNICEF, UNESCO, we see so many examples that are exactly what we need, and we just need to scale them up. We just need to distribute them. We just need to communicate. We need to advocate for its implementation. We need governments to understand the crucial role that education is going to have, and we need to make sure that people understand also the connection that exists between the outcomes that they desire, like economic development and youth employment and youth engagement and all these goals that they normally have. They want to have more entrepreneurs in their countries, but then they normally neglect the connection between that and education. So in essence, I just want to thank again ReWired for putting together all these extraordinary organizations that are doing so much to make education better, and I just want to express my willingness to collaborate, to support in any way, and we see that some of these solutions can be extremely useful, but obviously we need to work together, the public and the private sector, the third sector as well, everybody needs to be a part of the solution. And if we actually collaborate and coordinate efforts, and we focus on data, and we allocate resources properly, we see how we can help billions of people to get the right education. Not millions, but billions. And that's exactly the size of the issue, but at the same time, the size of the opportunity. We have the right technologies, we have the right resources, and we do have solutions. The more important question is not if we have the capacity or not, is if we're willing to do what it takes to coordinate efforts and to stop working in silos, but more to integrate our efforts and make things better in the most effective way possible. I want to thank you again for everything, for the invitation and for all your work, and we're at your disposal to support in any way. Thank you so much, and all the best.